The volcanic winds of Kargath howled like tortured spirits, whipping ash and embers into a blinding haze. Kane adjusted his visor, its heads-up display struggling to filter the chaos. Behind him, Bravo team huddled against the jagged rocks, their armor smudged with soot. "Nice vacation spot," Corporal Reese quipped, crouching beside him. "Think we'll get a discount if we write a bad review?" Kane smirked. "Sure. Just don't mention the 5-star lava baths." The levity was thin armor against the dread that gripped them all. Above the ridge, alien drones zipped by, their green searchlights cutting through the gloom. Kane motioned for silence, his gloved hand signaling the team to hold position. Through his scope, Kane spotted their objective, a jagged outcropping overlooking the Zythar encampment. If they secured the ridge, they could rain havoc on enemy supply lines. If they failed, the Dominion's reinforcements would crush Earth's colonies within days. Reese nudged him. "Movement. 9 o'clock. Kane swiveled, his scope locking onto a shimmering form, one of the Zythar. The alien's sinewy frame shimmered in the ash-heavy air, its armor reflecting the surrounding lava flows like liquid obsidian. It moved with eerie grace, its plasma rifle poised. "They're laughing at us," Reese muttered, his tone dark. The sound of alien mockery crackled through their comms, the Zythar broadcasting their disdain for human weaponry. "Pathetic," the guttural voice sneered. "Your species is unworthy of this fight." Kane ignored the taunts. "Reese, focus. We're not here for a debate." He steadied his rifle, his breath slowing. "We're here to send a message." The railgun hummed in his hands, its prototype core charging with a rising whine. Kane's crosshairs hovered over the Zythar gunship parked at the edge of the camp. He whispered to himself, "Just like training." The trigger clicked. A blinding bolt of energy ripped through the air, slicing the ash storm apart. The gunship erupted in a fiery bloom, its fragmented hull raining down like molten hail. The comms went silent. Then came a low growl, a ripple of anger through the Zythar forces. Kane didn't wait to see their reaction. "Move!" Bravo team surged forward, boots crunching against the brittle volcanic crust. Plasma fire lit up the ridge as drones zeroed in on their position. Reese fired back with his pulse rifle, the bursts lighting his determined face. "Down!" Kane barked, dragging a squad mate behind a jagged boulder just as a drone's beam scorched the air above. As the firefight intensified, Kane's comm lit up with a warning, "Incoming reinforcements." He glanced back at the wreckage of the gunship, now emitting a pulsing beacon. Reese leaned in, panting. "You just had to make an impression, didn't you?" Kane gave a grim smile. "They laughed first." The beacon's pulse grew louder, the horizon glowing with the ominous approach of Zythar's ships. Kane tightened his grip on the railgun. "Let's make sure we're the ones laughing last." Cliffhanger *, the ridge rumbled as the ground beneath them cracked, the weight of the battle shifting more than just their odds. The ridge trembled under the thunderous roar of Zythar reinforcements. Kane's visor flared with warnings as multiple heat signatures emerged on the horizon. Above, the ash-filled skies came alive with the green glow of alien warcraft descending like vultures. "Eyes up! We've got company!" Kane shouted, his voice cutting through the storm of chaos. Bravo teams scrambled for cover as plasma beams rained down, searing the volcanic rock and leaving behind trails of molten slag. Kane's railgun whined, its charge nearing full capacity. He steadied it on a jagged boulder, targeting the lead craft, a sleek fighter bristling with alien weaponry. "Reese, give me a distraction!" Kane barked. "On it!" Reese vaulted to higher ground, unloading his pulse rifle in a wide arc. The bright bursts of human tech were a poor match for Zythar's shields, but they drew the fighter's attention. "Hold steady, steady," Kane muttered to himself, aligning his scope. The railgun fired, its crack like a thunderclap splitting the heavens. The bolt pierced the fighter's shield, hitting its engine core. The craft sputtered, careening into a jagged spire and erupting in a fiery explosion that lit the battlefield. Kane exhaled, his breath catching in the acrid air. One down. Too many to go. Behind him, Private Lasky crouched low, gripping his weapon tightly. They just keep coming, Kane. We're sitting ducks here. Kane shot him a sharp look. We hold this ridge, Lasky. No retreat. His tone left no room for argument. As the team regrouped, a distant boom shook the ground. Kane turned, spotting a massive Zythar dropship lowering onto the far side of the ridge. Its bay doors opened, spilling out alien warriors armed to the teeth. Looks like they brought their A-game, Rhys muttered, reloading. Kane's mind raced. Their position was defensible but exposed. And the railgun was nearing its limits. The prototype wasn't designed for sustained use. He weighed their dwindling options, his instincts screaming for a bold move. Rhys, Lasky with me, Kane ordered. We're taking the fight to them. Holt, Harris, hold this position and keep those drones off us. Holt nodded, his expression grim. You better come back with good news, Kane. The trio navigated the treacherous terrain, using the volcanic rocks as cover. The air shimmered with heat, each step a precarious dance over brittle crust and bubbling magma. The Zythar forces advanced methodically, their weapons glowing ominously in the dim light. Kane halted as they reached a shattered gunship's wreckage. Among the twisted metal, an intact datapad blinked with alien glyphs. He grabbed it, hoping it held tactical data. Before they could move, a drone appeared, its scanner locking onto them. Kane fired instinctively, but the shot ricocheted off its shields. Run! Kane shouted, grabbing Rhys's arm and pulling him back as the drone fired. Plasma bolts scorched the ground where they'd stood moments ago. The trio dove into cover, breaths ragged. They're not letting up, Rhys said, wiping sweat from his brow. No, Kane replied, gripping the datapad. But neither are we. Cliffhanger *, a low rumble grew behind them, and Kane turned to see a towering Zythar mech descending from the dropship, its massive cannon aimed directly at their position. The ground shook with each step of the Zythar mech, its imposing form illuminated by the molten rivers below. Kane stared at the towering machine, its gleaming cannon charging with an ominous hum. Suggestions? Rhys muttered, crouching low behind the jagged wreckage of the crashed gunship. Kane's mind raced. Yeah. Don't get vaporized. Rhys snorted. Solid advice. Kane pulled a grenade from his belt, gripping it tightly as he scanned the mech for weaknesses. Its shield shimmered faintly, barely visible against the haze of heat. We need to drop those shields. Get its attention. I'm great at being a target, Rhys said, rising just enough to fire a few bursts from his pulse rifle. The mech's head swiveled toward the movement, its cannon spitting out a bolt of plasma. The blast struck inches from Rhys's cover, sending molten debris flying. Any closer, and I'm putting in for hazard pay, Rhys yelled, ducking. Kane took the opportunity to dash to a better vantage point. From here, he could see the mech shield generator, an exposed cluster of glowing nodes near its left hip. He armed the grenade and hurled it with precision. The explosion rocked the mech, its shields flickering briefly before stabilizing. Kane cursed under his breath. It wasn't enough. Rhys looked over, eyes wide. Plan B? Kane's gaze fell on a jagged spire of volcanic rock looming above the mech. An idea formed, risky but their best shot. See that rock? We're bringing it down. Rhys followed his line of sight, his face twisting into a mix of disbelief and determination. You're insane. Let's do it. The mech's cannon charged again, its energy building to a crescendo. Kane signaled Rhys to move, and the two split, flanking the machine. It hesitated, unsure of which target to prioritize. Over here, you oversized toaster! Rhys shouted, firing relentlessly at the mech's head. Kane scrambled up the spire, gripping the molten hot rock with his gloved hands. Each step was a battle against the heat and his own exhaustion. Below, Rhys's taunts continued, punctuated by the deafening blasts of the mech's cannon. Finally reaching the top, Kane planted a shaped charge at the spire's base. He looked down, his chest heaving. Rhys, get clear! Rhys broke into a sprint just as the mech turned its cannon toward Kane. The charge detonated, and the spire groaned under its own weight. The massive slab of rock toppled, striking the mech with devastating force. The machine crumpled, its cannon shattering as it collapsed into the molten ground. Kane slid down the spire, landing hard beside Reese. Not bad, Reese said between gasps. Next time, maybe don't climb something that's about to explode. Noted, Kane replied, offering a weary grin. Their calm crackled to life. Bravo team, regroup! Holt's voice was tense. We've got bigger problems. Cliffhanger * Kane and Reese turned to see a massive Zythar dropship descending, its bay doors opening to reveal a new wave of alien warriors. The dropship loomed like a predator, casting its shadow across the fractured terrain. Zythar warriors spilled out, their armor glinting with the eerie green of their plasma weapons. Kane and Reese crouched behind a jagged rock formation, watching the tide of enemies pour in. How many do you count? Reese whispered, gripping his rifle. Too many, Kane replied, scanning the group. They're not messing around this time. Holt's voice crackled through the comms. Kane, we've got eyes on you. That dropship's unloading straight into our path. What's the play? Kane wiped sweat and soot from his face, his mind working at a feverish pace. We hit them hard. Keep moving. If we stop, we're dead. Great pep talk, Reese muttered. Kane ignored him and gave the signal. Bravo team converged, their weapons blazing as they attacked from multiple angles. The Zythar responded in kind, their precision terrifyingly efficient. Plasma bolts zipped past Kane, one searing the rock inches from his head. Lasky, on the left! Pin them down! Kane barked. I'm on it! Lasky dove into cover, laying down suppressing fire that forced the aliens to scatter. As the firefight raged, Kane spotted a weak point in the dropship's defenses, its exposed fuel line, glowing faintly under the ship's hull. He signaled to Reese. You see that line? We blow it, this whole place goes up. Reese nodded. I'll cover you. Don't miss. Kane sprinted low across the battlefield, dodging plasma fire that scorched the ground in his wake. His heart pounded as he slid into position beneath the dropship, planting the last of their shaped charges along the fuel line. Charges set! Kane yelled into the comms. A Zythar warrior leapt from the shadows, its blade arcing toward Kane. He barely blocked the strike with his rifle, the force knocking him backward. The alien loomed over him, its glowing eyes filled with cold malice. Reese's shot rang out, striking the Zythar square in the head. It collapsed in a heap beside Kane. Don't say I never save your ass, Reese called out, grinning despite the chaos. Kane scrambled to his feet and detonated the charges. The explosion rocked the battlefield, engulfing the dropship in a fiery inferno. The blast sent shockwaves through the ridge, knocking both humans and Zythar off their feet. When the smoke cleared, the remaining Zythar forces regrouped, their ranks thin but not broken. Bravo team, battered and bruised, rallied behind Kane. We're not done yet, Holt said grimly, checking his weapon. Kane took a deep breath, his body screaming with exhaustion. No, we're not. But we've given them something to remember. Cliffhanger * as the team braced for the next wave, a hologram of Supreme Commander Vrax flickered into existence above the battlefield. His voice boomed, cold and mocking. Is this the best your kind can muster? The end of humanity will be swift and absolute. Supreme Commander Vrax's hologram towered over the battlefield, his voice a cold sneer. Your defiance is admirable, humans. Futile, but admirable. Kane's jaw clenched. The Zythar leader's image, with its imposing presence and predatory smirk, seemed designed to sap morale. But Bravo Team wasn't here to surrender. Futile? Reese muttered, wiping soot from his face. We'll see about that. Focus, Kane snapped, scanning their surroundings. The battlefield was a ruin of molten rock, charred bodies, and the smoking remains of the dropship. Yet the Zythar forces pressed on, their precision relentless. Vrax continued, his tone dripping with disdain. For centuries, we have conquered countless worlds. You are but a minor annoyance. Kane ignored the taunts, switching his visor to thermal. A cluster of heat signatures pulsed from the far side of the ridge, an incoming wave of reinforcements. He keyed his comm. Bravo team, listen up. We've got one shot at this. We cut off their command link. Holt's voice crackled in response. And how exactly do we do that while getting shot at, boss? Vrax is projecting from that command relay on the ridge. We take it out, we take him out. Without him, they'll lose cohesion. Reese raised an eyebrow. And how do we get close without getting fried? Kane tightened his grip on his rifle. We don't. We punch through. The team moved with purpose, their formation tight. Plasma fire lit the battlefield, each burst a reminder of how close death lurked. Kane led the charge, his railgun whining as it discharged another deadly bolt into the advancing Zythar ranks. The alien forces adjusted, their formation shifting to block the humans' path. Kane threw a hand signal. Flank them! Keep their attention on me! Reese and Lasky veered left, their weapons blazing. Holt and Harris took the right, lobbing grenades into the densest clusters of Zythar. Kane charged straight through the middle, his railgun firing at anything that moved. He reached the command relay, a spire of alien tech pulsating with green light. Its core hummed with power, shielded by a shimmering energy barrier. Kane set down his railgun and pulled a portable EMP from his pack. Hold the line! He shouted into his comm. Reese's voice came back, strained but determined. Not a problem, boss. Just hurry. Kane activated the EMP, its charge building in a high-pitched whine. He set it at the base of the spire and sprinted back toward cover. The device detonated, sending out a shockwave that shattered the energy barrier and fried the relay. Vrax's hologram flickered and faded, his final words cut short. The battlefield fell eerily silent as the Zythar forces hesitated, their unity fracturing without their leader's command. Kane stood tall, his team regrouping around him. The Zythar began to retreat, their organized ranks devolving into chaos. Reese clapped Kane on the shoulder. Guess they're not laughing now. Kane allowed himself a small smile. No, they're not. Epilogue T's asterisk in the distance, the faint glow of another Zythar fleet shimmered on the horizon. The war was far from over, but for now, humanity had proven its worth.